Hey, today I'm going to be showing you how to change your sprocket. What you're going to need is something to take your cranks off. What I mean by that is like a 6mm, just an Allen wrench, like this. And you're going to need something to take the bolt out of your sprocket, just the sprocket bolt. Mine is different, my crank size, the bolt, it's a different size. It's standard and it's metric for the sprocket bolt. So the first step, another thing you're going to need, well, it's kind of optional, but I find it's the easiest and best way to get your cranks off, is right here, this rubber mallet. Now, first step is to loosen your back wheel. You just, loosen the axle nuts right here. Mine are already loosened, so I've done this step. So you loosen it and you push it all the way forward. You don't even have to take the wheel off. So the next step right here, you move the chain over, just by doing that. Next step is you loosen your cranks with your Allen key right there. Just take this, loosen both sides. Actually, you don't loosen it, you completely take it off. Because if you don't take it off, then you can't get your cranks off, and that's bad. So, take the bolt completely out. Just take that bolt out and keep it in a safe place so you don't lose it, all that stuff. Then you take this one out, here. Make sure you don't lose anything, because then you can't get it back on, and that's bad. So you just take this right out. Oh, almost lost that. Take this, keep it in a safe place again. Now, there's the sprocket bolt in here. Right in there, on the inside of your sprocket. Next to your cranks, it's what keeps the crank and the sprocket in one, so they can pedal. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your 6mm Allen wrench, or whatever size it is. You put this, you just loosen. Now you're going to have to take this completely off, all the way. Once you get it pretty loose, you can probably use your fingers. Unless it's kind of rusted on there or something. So, just get this completely off. Keep it right there. And this is where you have to make sure you're doing this. You get your rubber mallet. And you hit it. Just like this. Just hit it like that. But you gotta make sure you're doing it at a decent... You gotta do it decently hard, but not too hard, obviously. Do it on the opposite side of your sprocket, or your drive side. Opposite side. So you're going to hit away from the sprocket, not into, away. Just like this. And yeah, it's probably going to fall. So try not to move this. Try not to move this at all. There you go. Just keep that in. Keep your chain over here too. So the next step, get your sprocket, obviously. Just get this. Now, if you have a 19mm Allen, if you have a 19mm bottom bracket, make sure that you have this adapter so it'll fit. Because if not, then it'll be loose and shaking around, and that's not good. And you just want it really good, and yeah. So, what you're going to do with this, you're going to make sure you have all your spaces in, your chain is all in the right position. Take this, slap it right on there. Now, this is where you have to make sure you're doing this right, because if not, then you're going to take it all off again and do it. So, make sure your crank arm is lined up with the other side. Make Make sure it's completely lined up. If it's not lined up, then your cranks are gonna be like that. You don't really want to do that because that's for obvious reasons. It's not good to have uneven cranks. For the most part, you can use your hands. Okay, you can just use your hands. Now, for this step, I find that you should tighten your cranks first, so it gets tighter. You just tighten this down with your fingers, and then you can use the Allen wrench later to get it more tight. I'm actually going to zoom in here so you can see this a little bit better. Oh, never mind. Just get a little closer, but yeah, you're just going to loosen this. We'll tighten it. Tighten it with your fingers in there. Just with your fingers, finger tight, just snug it. After you snug that side in, take the other side, the other crank bolt, and you tighten it. Just with your fingers, snug it down. Alright. After you snug it, you're going to have to take your Allen key and tighten it. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it too loose, because if it's too loose, then they'll spin around, but if you do it too tight, you could mess up your bottom bracket, and your cranks won't spin as good. So do it medium, unless you don't want your cranks to spin, but then you could just put something in between your bottom bracket so your cranks don't spin around. But do it pretty tight, make sure it's nice and snugged in there. I like to do mine pretty tight because when I do tail ups, I don't like my cranks spinning around. It's kind of annoying. It's pretty tight. Just do a little bit more. So go to the other side, do the same thing. Alright, that's good right there. Now your sprocket's on, but this is what you have to do. Make sure that your crank on, right here, where the pinch bolt hole is on your cranks, and the pinch bolt hole on your sprocket is. You have to make sure that they're lined up, which mine right now is just about lined up. So take this. Mine's actually a little tight. It's really tight, actually. So actually, I'm going to have to loosen this a little bit. So loosen that a little bit if it's too tight. So line that up and everything. Line it with like where your bolt should go with your sprocket. And just slide that bolt right in there. And make sure it's the sprocket bolt hole and not another hole like one of these things, because it's not meant for a sprocket hole or bolt, and that will not be good. So just don't tighten that all the way. Make sure you don't tighten that all the way, because you're going to have to tighten this one down again, just so your sprocket doesn't move around. Tighten that nice and good. Another Allen wrench. Tighten it down. Make sure you get it pretty tight, because you don't want it loose, because it gets annoying, and it'll make an annoying creaking sound if it's not tightened down all the way. And it'll not skip, but it's almost like a drop down when you're pedaling. It's hard to explain, but if you have a loose sprocket, then you know what I'm talking about. So once you get to this point, you're pretty much almost done. Just slide your chain on like you would normally do if you put a new tire on or something, or you put your wheel back on. You just look at it. There you go. You just put your wheel back on, tighten the axle bolts, stuff like that. You're all done. You got a new sprocket on. Thank you for watching.